Welcome to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. Today is April 4th, Friday, National Hug a Librarian Day, which brings us to the show that we're reviewing, the last anniversary, because it's based on a novel that came out in 2005 by Liane Moriarty. That name should be familiar to you because you've seen Big Little Lies, right?
Yep, the first season.
And Nine Perfect Strangers. I know you didn't watch that one.
Both were produced by Nicole Kidman, right?
And both had Nicole Kidman in it. This is the
Yeah.
first one that I think that she's just not in altogether. However, she did, I think, say that Sophie, whoever played Sophie, Teresa Palmer, right, was a good choice for her. I don't think she was ever up for the role, you know? I don't think Nicole Kidman
So
can play.
she came into this knowing she wasn't going to be in the show.
Right. So the main character is 39 years old. And I think that would be a little bit of a stretch for Nicole Kidman at this point in her career. But the adaptation is a 6-part Australian television series starring Teresa Palmer, Miranda Richardson, and Danielle Macdonald, who's got a lot of praise. She's from Unbelievable. It premiered on Binge March 30th. We're reviewing the first episode. My first question for you before our audio issues, so you know the answer, was the Scribbly Gum is the name of the island, which is a fictional place. However, this is all based on a real place, Dongar Island, and Scribbly Gum is the name of a type of eucalyptus tree. And people actually don't really like eucalyptus trees. I learned that, but I guess because of all the fires they cause and that they're very messy unless they're like well maintained and stuff like that. But they're huge. You know, I've always thought of them and I'm like, these look like good luck trees or something. But So Scribbly Gum is a fake place. However, the place it really, they filmed it in Hawkesbury River, which is where the book was taking place, sort of. And so Moriarty was very intent on not having it be like Big Little Lies, where all that took place in the U.S.
Yeah,
despite
they
her
changed
writing
it.
it. Yes.
Right.
Because you know how big authors are about the setting being just as much a character as anything else.
Right.
So Dongar Island is a place where like they don't even have private cars. People walk around with wheelbarrows. Not a lot of people there. And Sophie, our main character, she's only been there a few times. She likes the island. However, when this old lady just gives her a house, she doesn't really know exactly what to do.
It's very Knives Out-esque, where it's like the main person who owns this giant mansion, even though in this show it's not a mansion, gives it to someone who's out of the family.
Right. So the Sophie's ex-boyfriend's great aunt is named Connie, and she has a big family, and they're all, when she passes away, kind of surprised that Sophie comes out of the woodwork and she now has the house, right?
Yeah.
And so some people respond to it better than others, like you're talking about, Knives Out-ish. But Sophie, when we first learn about her, what's going on in her life?
She's a down-on-her-luck freelance journalist, and she reminded me actually a lot of Rhiannon Lewis from Sweet Pea because just less psychotic, because both are shy. At the beginning of the series, Sophie is walked on by almost every character. She goes on a date where the guy leaves early after admitting he has another date, and Sophie is so lonely that she is still about to ask to see him again.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of In Missing You, the Harlan Coben adaptation that came out on Netflix. They introduced that character also on a date that's not going particularly well. So she goes, well, actually, no, the date was going fine for her.
It was going good, yeah.
And then she goes and busts a chef for like having a fight in another scene, just kind of used as a plot device to give a lot of information about the character. Did this feel the same way where it was just like plot dump? We now know the type of person that she is.
It did, yeah, because also it seemed like we were trying to get as much exposition as possible when Sophie goes into the bathroom and she's looking at herself and she's like, you're 39 years old, like your time is up.
I will say though that the Sweet Pea character was more depressed and definitely more antisocial. Teresa Palmer, there's only so much you can do to make her seem that desperate because again, she's like the leading lady in a lot of these films over the last few years. So they didn't like make her super. Oh, they did. They did try to say that she was ugly in the show because she was like, "It's happening, isn't it? I'm having this
She
blush."
gets this breakout blush that you even see on their neck, which was strange.
I barely saw it in the TV screen. I was trying to understand exactly. I think it was supposed to present the fact that she's more desperate, but it's just strange.
But as you said, she was I think the first thing I ever saw her in was like in the movie theater in like 6th grade. She was the love interest in Take Me Home Tonight. She was also love interest in Warm Bodies.
It's also funny because in the flashbacks when she's with the ex-boyfriend, right, she seems pretty confident in her own skin at that point. So I guess it is mostly just age that's kind of throwing her in a tailspin. And so let's concentrate a little bit more on the town now. So Scribbly Gum you've got this decades-old mystery, right? It's known for this one thing where there was a disappearance, kind of like baby or what was it, Dingo Ate My Baby type thing,
Yeah.
where the baby disappeared and then the parents disappeared, and then who's left taking care of the baby because the baby turns up again?
Rose and Connie, it's even how the series starts out. It's the first scene. They are arriving on shore with a baby, and
This is like 50 years ago.
yeah, this was decades beforehand, and then we cut and we see that that baby was actually Enigma. Enigma is someone that is giving tours on the island.
Right. She's made a career out of the fact that she was the Munro baby.
She literally is like, "I am the baby. I know that I did not kill them," or it's some type of question.
It's
as to
very
her
much like
parents.
Scream, you know, where in the first Scream, it's people are dying, but then by the second one, they're already making a big deal about this being the town where it happened, and people are opening up theme parks, and you know that it just goes, and it would be even crazier now with all the true crime stuff. So this was again written in 2005, but it takes place now because they wanted to
Right.
kind of bring an element of contemporaneous to.
I think that the first scene of the series, just the subplot with the girls, that did not interest me at all. In fact, I was kind of afraid because it takes up like the first 5 minutes, and I thought that Enigma was going to be the main character. But no, that's when we cut to Sophie and the date and everything going on. And I do think that this is the best thing I've seen Teresa Palmer in, probably out of all the things I've seen her in. Again, she was in The Clearing last, I think, like 2 years ago, but I think she does her best performance here.
You remember Big Little Lies pretty well?
The first season, yeah.
Okay, what was like the main comparison between that and this
I would say that both take place on an island. I remember Nicole
setting?
Kidman's yeah,
Looks similar, even though it's not Australia. But
right.
yeah, I mean, tone wise, I know it's a lot of family stuff, a
A
lot of
lot
family
of
drama.
themes of betrayal, mystery, deep family secrets. I know.
Women camaraderie a little
Yes,
bit.
yes, yes. Because the main character, I think is Zoe Kravitz. I think that's the person that plays her. But
Okay.
she goes to a separate place in the U.S. and then she befriends Reese Witherspoon and Nicole Kidman's character. Nicole Kidman is married to kind of the antagonist of the series, Alexander Skarsgård,
Right.
and a lot of it deals with how this main character is going to help her kid that's in school that might have some learning disabilities or has a violent nature, and then also figure out who raped the main
So you
character.
remember it pretty well, and it sounds like it also has like several mysteries tied in, and it's just how this group of women are able to tackle those.
Right.
Something similar may happen here. Connie is not only a journalist, so she's intrigued by what's going on the island even before she was given the house. But you think that she's going to move there, yes?
Yes, no, I think that even by the end of the first episode, they show her going into the house, and I think that that was a good place to end it. This is lighter than Big Little Lies is, though.
It's a little bit like Justin Long also entering the house, though. Maybe she's just trying to sell it. You know, maybe she's going to go downstairs.
Are you talking about Justin Long from Barbarian?
Barbarian, yes, of course. The other thing she gets is this letter from Connie that does a number of things, but kind of explains why she's given this. Basically, there's a symbiotic. How do you put it? They have a connection, right? Even though they've met very few times. And also, she kind of gives her this prophecy. I'm not sure if it's in the first episode, but it's certainly mentioned in the reviews where it says, "You may meet the love of your life." And she's already, throughout this first episode, we see her ex, we see this guy that she slept with once. They're both
Callum.
taken right now. And so, like, she may run into other people. It seems maybe that's a little bit more romantic subplot.
And yes, definitely, but a lot of the different characters have different feelings on the issue. It was nice to not just see that everyone was mad at Sophie.
Not her love life issue, but the issue
Of her getting the house.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, because like for example, Rose, who was with Connie, she isn't mad about it. She even tells Sophie to come to the island if it makes her happy by the end of the first episode. Veronica is what I felt like every other character was going to be, but ended up not being. Which she's just pissed. She's ready to lawyer up. She wants the
Does she
house.
have a right to be, though? Like, you think about it, if your grandma just gave someone, a stranger, like everything, and the rest of the family was kind of like, what are we supposed to do with this?
She just reminded me of one of the Knives Out characters, one of the
Yeah,
people
okay.
that's just mad, and I don't know
But
if she was expecting to get the house.
in Knives Out, they're all like leeches.
Right.
These guys aren't portrayed,
Right, no,
right?
because even Margie puts on a happy face when speaking to Sophie, but But I could tell that, like, Margie, she was kind of put off about the ownership. Connie, we learn, influences Sophie's decision, so that was a big thing. Thomas is her ex-boyfriend. That's how they were, again, in the back flashes, they were together. That's how Sophie met Connie in the first place. But Connie even told Sophie not to marry Thomas because in the end, when she asked why they would get together or why they would be married, Sophie said that she wanted a family. And she's like, don't do that just because you want a family. And then we learn that we see them bond later on when they go to like the shoreline. And then Callum is with Grace. It seems like there was something there with Sophie. They either had an affair.
No. She said it herself. Like, this was way younger before they even, like, it was in Thailand, is what she said.
I wasn't sure, though, how long that Callum and Grace had been together. Grace
She
being
didn't
the
even
daughter of
remember her.
Enigma.
It was a one-night stand. Like, you
Okay.
could just tell it by the way that they presented it. The other thing about the inheritance, though, that it suddenly reminded me of was the other Harlan Coben book, Fool Me Once, because that whole plot was that the person who died before the book started, Nick, I think his name was, she inherited almost everything with the rest of the family, but the rest of the family was very upset with her throughout the entire novel and end up being antagonists themselves.
And talking about inheritance, The Inheritance,
Of
that
course.
TV show reminded me of it, Succession, even the comedy Running Point a little bit. One strange connection I made was Gran Torino. It's a weird comparison, but a prized possession, again, that is given away and
The
someone
connection
with
between the
will.
older person and, like, just the stranger, like we were
Right.
talking about. Now, it's got an interesting, like, behind the camera set of people because you got the creator, Samantha Strauss, who, along with her production company, I think it's like Picking Scabs or something like that. We talked about it during Sweet Pea. She didn't create Sweet Pea, but her production company was part of it. She did create Apple Cider Vinegar, another Australian show that had Caitlin Devers in it. Unbelievable Danielle, whatever, for Veronica's character, right? Sophie also isn't originally a journalist in the book, I think, or at least her role as a journalist is much more downplayed. I just want to point
Oh,
that
they
out.
changed it so that she would have, I guess, more of a reason to go.
That and also just more intrigue into the plot, of the detectiveness story. Production design was Mad Max Fury Road. Uh, but this is like a very cozy series compared to, racing cars and
I thought that
fire.
I thought the cinematography for the show looked nice though. Some nice drone shots.
It's hard to make Australia look ugly.
It reminded me a lot of like Billionaire Island also.
Sure. John Polson, he's done everything from The Boys, the 98 movie about the dude who gets out of prison and pisses off his family. You watched The Boys, right? Big Sky, 97 drama series about the adventures of piloting. Sirens, which was a 1994 adaptation of the life of artist Norman Lindsay, starring Hugh Grant and Sam Neill.
Obviously the most famous of those things. You joke
of
about The
course,
Boys. I
yeah.
think I actually saw part of that movie though.
Oh, really? 'Cause
Yeah,
you were looking up the other one, and then you ended up it's funny how names over time have just been, like, reused and reused, but Kangaroo Palace is yet to be reused, but the one you would actually know him from is Mission Impossible 2. He, I think, directed that. Music and sound, they got the same people who did Winter's Bone and The Lost Daughter. Now, it's interesting with
they had a
Winter's
lot of like
Bone.
Oscar nominated things.
Right. It was, I mean, Moriarty, I think, demands it. Teresa Palmer had been wanting to be in a show like Big Little Lies and in a Moriarty book for a very, very long time, and they got Nicole Kidman's like approval once they'd been cast. So, yeah, even though she had all those accolades beforehand, sight unseen, she was like, I want this role. So Helen Mirren-esque in the
Wow.
last show that we did. And the Rose character, was she like the second name down, do you think? Because Miranda Richardson, at least in what I was reading, she's played Rita Skeeter in Harry Potter, which was the journalist there, and then also she was in Chicken Run. Those are the most.
It felt like Rose and Connie were, if it was like the US version, they would be like the really, really famous people because they were the oldest people.
Do you want to cast them right now? Like, go ahead. You've ignored the storyline, I think, right now about the baby.
Yeah, so Grace again is the daughter of Enigma. She even is told by Enigma at the beginning of the series about Connie passing away, but she experiences a traumatic childbirth. She doesn't even tell the family about it until after the baby is born. The first scene we see with her, she's an author, but she's starting to be haunted, and again, she's with Calum. She even has
Callum or Calum? Okay, yeah.
I think Calum, but she ends up even having visions of like holding the baby and the baby suddenly becoming sick and dying.
Right. So, like, I think she might have postpartum depression, which is, I think, genetic, and which would sort of make sense if you think back. Her mom is Enigma, right?
Right.
Her parents disappeared under suspicious circumstances. Also, the baby had been like missing for a while. What if her mom had postpartum depression, and then Connie and Rose saved the baby, and then this is all just spitballing, and that's why they ended up raising Enigma, and then Enigma's daughter ends up also having the same postpartum depression, wanting to distance herself from the baby, get rid of it, and that's why she like ditched it at the hospital.
Because I was just about to say, there's even a question as to if Grace told the nurses that she was even going to be leaving the hospital.
There was no real question. It was she left the hospital.
Yeah, and that's why Callum gives her the phone later on to talk about. So overall, those were the things I liked about the series. I like the themes. I like Teresa Palmer. I like the way that it looked. And
let's make sure we get through all the comparisons. Do you have?
Yeah, the only other ones I had was Asura, because again, kind of a mostly female cast, and then Deadloch as well. And then
Deadloch, of course. I feel like Deadloch, that series was the most poignant to making fun of this type of series, where it was not only about the two female leads saving all the men from this killer by like sticking them on a bus, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was that one I would still enjoy. I think, especially after watching this show, right?
Yeah.
Because they go together. I would also throw in there Under the Bridge, which we almost reviewed a year ago. I think that was like April 17th, April 19th.
Right. That was different from the book. I remember Rebecca Godfrey was like one of the main characters, I think.
Right. And they added her more into the investigative portion of it.
Yeah.
And then Bad Sisters, just because of the family relations and the murder mystery. The Jetty, because that is, again, a detective. and she's, I don't really remember that show, to be honest.
I don't remember it either.
The Baby Mystery from the past reminded me a little bit of Perry Mason.
The reboot. Yeah.
It wasn't really a missing baby as much as a dead baby.
A dead baby, but who killed it? Yeah.
Loch Henry, because you got like this small town, small island. No one wants to talk about it. The Black Mirror episode.
Oh, okay.
Where this guy decides to do like a found footage type deal and discover what happened. I hope that's not what's going to happen here, because it was a violent episode.
I don't think that there's going to be much violence in this show. Right. I think it's really focused.
The cover is all of them hugging.
Yeah. I think it's really just going to be focused on the soap opera-ness of it.
Echo. Do you see why I say Echo? Because it's like the multi-generation women of all sorts getting together, especially at the end.
Because it focuses on three generations, yeah.
And then Harper's Island. Like,
Harper's Island.
You never, again, murder mystery there where everybody gets murdered.
That's more horror or anything, if anything.
Yeah.
I thought that the first scene of the series subplot with the girls, I really honestly couldn't care less about it. It seems like that's going to be something that's explored in later episodes with the mystery. I'm sure the book probably does a better job with it. It's 50 minutes long, and it felt like it was too long. Some of the pacing I felt like was sluggish. It's not as obvious as, say, something like Succession, that the family is rich, but it still feels like a plot that's been done a million times beforehand. You know,
is the family rich though? Because why would they care as much about this great aunt?
It's a huge house on a big island. I think that they're definitely supposed to be somewhat wealthy. Yeah, a small island. That's what I meant. And again, I really couldn't care less about the first story. And I also feel like Sophie is probably that Callum storyline. There's going to be something that comes into play with that. The secret's going to be let out. I feel like there's more to describe there. The show has promised.
I think it's just more a romance of like whether or not she's going to end up with him or whoever else. She's not going to break up. She's not going to be a homewrecker.
Well, then why even introduce the story?
Just to have like, the possibility, I guess, like a little teaser.
Because they say in the first episode that they're not going to really talk about it, but obviously that's going to be brought up in some type of context. You don't see anything as to like how that could possibly ruin a relationship.
I think I would not discount her date from the first part. I think he's still got it. I'm kidding. I don't think they've introduced maybe who she's eventually going to end up with, because everybody she's been seen as a love interest right now is, as we said, taken.
I like the production, I like the characters, I like the acting, but a slow-moving plot makes me give this a passing grade, but only a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. And your favorite character was?
Probably Sophie. Sophie out of all of them.
Okay, and like the reviews are basically going along with you. You've got Guardian give it 4 stars, said it was beautifully balanced, a face full of nuances and enigmas. Haha. AV Club gave it a B minus. There's not a ton of reviews out there. Metacritic doesn't even have a consensus. The Age, which is an Australian paper, gave it a 3 out of 5. So that's your rating. Far too much is going on, they said.
Yeah, because there's so many characters to keep track of. I mean, even underneath all the characters I have, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, almost 10 characters that it seems like are all vying for the screen. Obviously, Sophie being the main one, but still, it's almost too many.
And then it's got a 7.7 on IMDb. Take that for what you will. But one review said that it was sort of like a cozy cottage core of Midsummer Murders. Feels more like so basically they're saying it's pretty tame. It's like a PBS this murder mystery,
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So overall, you're not going to watch the rest of it, or
Probably not.
All right. Well, that'll be it then. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.